When Yellowstone National Park Steamboat Geyser spewed water higher than any other active geyser in the world in 2018 after 3.5 years of inactivity, some speculated that it was a sign of a possible catastrophic volcanic eruption in the surrounding geyser basin. These so-called hydrothermal explosions can send mud, sand, and rock into the air and release scalding steam, which can be life-threatening. Such an explosion on New Zealand's White Island in December 2019 killed 22 people. A new study by geologists who study geysers debunks that notion, finding little indication of the underground magma movement that would be required for an eruption. The geyser sits just outside the caldera of the nation's largest and most dynamic volcano, but it hasn't had a major eruption in 70,000 years. Hydrothermal eruptions, essentially hot water exploding on contact with hot rock, are one of the biggest hazards in Yellowstone, said Michael Manga, a professor of Earth and Planetary Sciences at the University of California, Berkeley, and the study's lead author. The reason they're problematic is because they're so hard to predict. It's not clear that there are precursors that would give you a warning. He and his team found that, while the ground around the geyser did rise and seismic activity increased slightly before the geyser came back online and the area is now radiating a little more heat into the atmosphere, no other dormant geysers in the basin have come back online, and the groundwater temperatures that fueled the steamboat eruptions did not increase. Furthermore, none of the steamboat eruptions other than the one that started in 2018 have occurred after periods of high seismic activity. We found no evidence that a major eruption was coming. I think that's an important lesson, he said. The team found answers to both questions. Comparing the column heights of 11 different geysers in the United States, Russia, Iceland, and Chile with the estimated depth of the water reservoir from which they erupted, they found that the deeper the reservoir, the higher the plumes. Steamboat Geyser, with a reservoir about 25 meters underground, had the highest column at 115 meters, or 377 feet, while the two geysers Manga measured in Chile had the lowest eruptions, about a meter, 3 feet, high from reservoirs 2 and 5 meters underground. What you're really doing is filling a container, reaching a critical point, emptying it, and then running out of fluid to erupt until it fills up again, he said. The deeper you go, the higher the pressure. The higher the pressure, the higher the boiling point, and the hotter the water, the more energy it has and the higher the geyser. To investigate the reasons for steamboat geysers' variability, the team compiled records associated with 109 eruptions that have occurred since it reactivated in 2018. The records included weather and river flow data, seismometer readings and ground deformation, and observations by geyser enthusiasts. They also looked at previous active and inactive periods of steamboat and 9 other Yellowstone geysers, as well as ground surface thermal emission data from the Norris Geyser Basin. They concluded that variations in rainfall and snowmelt may be responsible for some of the variable periods, and perhaps for other geysers as well. In the spring and early summer, with melting snow and rain, groundwater pressure pushes more water into the underground reservoir, providing more hot water to erupt more frequently. During the winter, with less water, the lower groundwater pressure recharges the reservoir more slowly, leading to longer periods between eruptions. Because the water being pushed into the reservoir comes from even deeper than the reservoir, it ages decades or hundreds of years before it erupts back to the surface, he said. In May, Manga's team showed the extreme impact of water shortages and drought on geysers. They showed that Yellowstone's iconic Old Faithful geyser stopped erupting altogether for about 100 years in the 13th and 14th centuries, based on radiocarbon dating of mineral-bearing lodgepole pine trees that grew around the geyser during its dormant period. Typically, the water is too alkaline and the temperatures too high for the trees to grow near active geysers. The dormant period coincided with a long, hot, dry spell across the western U.S. called the medieval climate anomaly, which may have contributed to the demise of several Native American civilizations in the West. Manga and his team couldn't say for sure why Steamboat Geyser started erupting again on March 15, 2018, after 3 years and 193 days of inactivity, even though the geyser is known to be much more variable than Old Faithful, which typically erupts every 90 minutes. They couldn't find any conclusive evidence that new magma rising beneath the geyser caused it to reactivate. The reactivation may have something to do with changes in the internal plumbing, he said. Geysers appear to need 3 ingredients: heat, water, and rocks made of silica, silicon dioxide. Because the hot water in the geyser continually dissolves and redeposits the silica each time Steamboat Geyser erupts, it releases about 200 kilograms, or 440 pounds, of dissolved silica. Some of this silica settles underground and can change the plumbing system beneath the geyser. Those changes could temporarily halt or reactivate an eruption if the plumbing is rerouted, he said. Manga has been experimenting with geysers in his lab to understand why they erupt periodically, and at least in the lab, it appears to be caused by twists or side chambers in the pipes that trap steam bubbles that slowly trickle out, heating the water column above until all the water can boil from the top down, erupting explosively in a column of water and steam. Studying the eruptions of water from geysers could provide insight into the eruptions of hot rocks from volcanoes, he said.